Hi Reddit, I'm 21F and living at home while I finish my last year of college. My mom remarried a few years ago to a man named Carl. He seemed okay at first, quiet, helpful, always polite. I never got a bad vibe from him, but we were never close either. My dad passed away when I was 13, so when Carl came into the picture, I guess I just accepted that someone new would be part of our lives. I commute to school to save money, and that means I'm around the house more than most people my age. I notice things, small things. And about a month ago, I noticed something strange, this tiny blinking light tucked way back on a bookshelf in the hallway. I didn't think much of it at first. Thought it was some kind of weird charger or maybe a router light. But a couple days later, I spotted another one, this time hidden between the books in the living room. I got curious. I waited until everyone was asleep and carefully pulled the object out. It was a camera. A freaking camera. The kind you can connect to your phone. Tiny, black, magnetic. It had no labels, but it was definitely on, blinking like it was still recording. I just froze, staring at it. I had no idea how long it had been there or what it had seen. But my stomach dropped because this one was pointed straight at the couch where I usually nap or read, sometimes in my pajamas. Sometimes in shorts. I felt sick. At first, I thought maybe mom had set it up for security. I mean, okay, weird placement, but maybe? But I didn't want to jump to conclusions. So I left it alone, didn't say anything. Just waited. Watched. Tried to catch someone touching it or checking it. That's when the really weird stuff started happening. Carl began acting more tense, paranoid almost. He started asking me oddly specific questions, like whether I ever rearranged things on the shelves. Whether I accidentally moved anything that looked expensive. It clicked. He knew. One of the cameras had gone missing, and he was trying to figure out if I was the one who found it. But here's the kicker. When I asked my mom about cameras in the house, casually, like, hey, are we getting security installed or something? She had no idea what I was talking about. So now I knew two things. The cameras weren't hers. And Carl hadn't told her. I didn't say a word. But I started looking for more. And I found 3 more. One in the hallway outside the bathroom. One in the kitchen. And the last one was in my bedroom. Facing my bed. I stared at it for what felt like hours. That last camera, hidden in my bedroom, was wedged behind an old wall decoration I hadn't touched in years. I only found it because I accidentally knocked the frame loose while dusting. It clattered to the floor, and behind it, something tiny and black hit the carpet with a dull thud. The moment I saw it, everything inside me turned cold. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I didn't even move for a while. I just sat on the edge of my bed, staring at this little piece of plastic that, for who knows how long, had been watching me. I couldn't stop picturing all the times I changed clothes in here, talked to myself, video called my friends, just existed. Completely unaware that someone might be watching. I felt violated. Filthy. Like my skin wasn't mine anymore. I knew it wasn't my mom. There was no way. She's not perfect, but she'd never invade my privacy like that, especially not in my bedroom. No, this had Carl written all over it. I just didn't have proof. Not yet. So I did what anyone with half a brain would do. I put it back. I carefully set the frame against the wall, exactly the way it had been, and I placed the camera back behind it, making sure everything looked untouched. Then I waited. That night, I stayed awake until after 2 a.m., pretending to be asleep. I heard footsteps. Soft, slow. Coming down the hall. Then my door creaked open. Only for a second. No knock. No voice. Just the sound of the hinges and a faint click, like something being adjusted. Then silence. When I heard the floorboards creak again, I knew he was gone. The next morning, the frame was slightly tilted. That was all the confirmation I needed. He'd been in my room. Probably checking on the camera. Probably making sure his secret was still safe. But now I had a secret of my own. I didn't tell my mom. Not yet. I didn't want to drop this bomb without knowing why he was doing it. What he was recording. What he planned to do with those videos. Because it wasn't just about catching him anymore. I needed to know the whole truth, even if it wrecked everything. I didn't sleep for the next 2 nights. I kept thinking, what kind of person does this? What's he doing with the footage? Is he saving it? Sharing it? Watching it live? It was eating me alive. But I knew I couldn't just accuse him. He'd deny it, twist it, maybe even gaslight me into looking like the crazy one. Carl was smooth like that, always calm, always careful with his words. He'd built this persona that made people trust him instantly. I needed evidence. Real evidence. So I decided to play a little game of my own. I used my old laptop, the one with the cracked screen and horrible battery life, and set it up across from the shelf in my room. It was angled just right to record the wall where the camera was hidden. I even left my door cracked slightly, like I was getting careless. Then I left for the night. I told my mom I was staying at a friend's place to pull an all-nighter for a group project. She didn't question it. Carl barely looked up from his tablet when I said goodbye. But when I came back the next morning, I went straight to my room and checked the laptop. It had shut down halfway through the night, but not before it captured what I needed. Around 1:14 a.m., the door opened. Carl stepped into the room. He walked over to the wall and slowly reached behind the frame. And then, he smiled. He freaking smiled. Like this was all some kind of twisted hobby. He adjusted the camera, looked around, then backed out of the room. The video ended about 2 minutes later when the battery finally died. I felt like I was going to throw up. But now I had him. I saved the footage to a USB drive and emailed a backup copy to myself. Then I did something I wasn't sure I'd ever be ready to do. I confronted him. Well, kind of. I took the camera off the shelf again and left it sitting in plain sight on my desk. I didn't say anything. Didn't even mention it. Just let it sit there like a ticking bomb. By noon, he noticed. And that's when things started to spiral. Carl noticed the camera on my desk while passing by my room. I saw his reflection freeze in the hallway mirror, just for a second, before he slowly backed up and peeked in. His face stayed neutral. That fake calm he always wore like armor. But I saw it. The flicker. The moment his brain went into panic mode. I acted like I didn't notice. I sat on my bed scrolling through my phone, pretending I was just another bored college student home for the weekend. But my heart was racing so fast it felt like it would crack my ribs. He cleared his throat and stepped into the doorway. Said he was checking to see if I wanted anything from the store. I said no thanks, kept my voice flat. Normal. He stood there a little longer than necessary, eyes darting between the camera on the desk and my face. Then he asked where it came from. I shrugged, told him I found it in the hallway, thought it looked expensive. I said I figured it was his. He stared at me for a second. Not long. But long enough to make my stomach twist. Then he laughed, said, "Oh yeah, must be from work," and took the camera. Just took it. Like it wasn't his heart rate spiking through his neck. Like this was all some little misunderstanding. That was his move. Always casual. Always just one breath away from pretending none of it was real. But then, something happened. Later that night, I walked past the kitchen and overheard him on the phone. He didn't know I was home. I couldn't hear every word, but I caught just enough to know he was nervous. Phrases like "she might have seen it" and "we need to be careful" echoed from behind the closed door. He said my name. Said I was getting suspicious. Said, "I told you it was too soon." Too soon for what? I backed away before he caught me listening, but I couldn't stop shaking. There was someone else involved. Someone who knew about the cameras. Someone he was working with, or covering for. I didn't sleep that night. Because now this wasn't just about me. This was bigger. And I had no idea how deep it went. I didn't wait long. The next morning, when Carl left for work, I went straight to the garage. That's where he kept most of his electronics, boxes of cords, old phones, weird tools I'd never seen him actually use. I'd never paid much attention to it before. But now? Now I was looking for anything out of place. And I found it. In a locked cabinet under his workbench, buried beneath old extension cords and a stack of router boxes, there was a black zippered pouch. It wasn't locked. I opened it and found exactly what I was hoping for, and dreading. A bundle of identical cameras. 7 of them. Each one carefully wrapped in microfiber cloth, labeled with a strip of tape LR, HB, KT, and so on. My stomach churned as I realized those were abbreviations for rooms. Living room. Hallway bathroom. Kitchen. Then I saw something else. A small, metal case with a snap latch. I opened it. Inside were memory cards. Dozens. Each labeled by date. Going back over a year. Some were new. Some were worn and scratched. Some were duplicates, multiple cards for the same day. That's when the panic really hit. This wasn't some impulsive invasion. This was organized. Archived. Routine. I didn't dare take all of it. I couldn't risk him noticing anything missing. But I slipped one card into my pocket. Just one. A recent one. The date read April 29th, 25 BR. My room. I put everything else back exactly how I found it, double-checked the zippered pouch, and locked the cabinet again. Then I ran. I didn't know how to check the card without tipping off Carl, but thankfully, I had someone in mind, my cousin Dan. He's 24, lives 2 towns over, and is a certified computer nerd. He's the kind of guy who can pull footage off corrupted drives just for fun. I texted him, said I needed help recovering a file. Nothing else. By the time I got there later that night, I was sweating bullets. Dan didn't ask questions. He never does. He loaded the card onto his desktop, clicked through the folders, and opened the most recent file. And what we saw on screen nearly made me pass out. There I was, sitting on my bed, reading, then changing clothes, then sleeping. The camera had been on all night. The footage wasn't grainy or distorted. It was clear. Clean. Too clean. Dan paused the video, eyes wide. Asked me what the hell this was. I couldn't speak. Not until I saw the next file. Because that's when I realized. I wasn't the only one he was recording. The second file on the card didn't have a label, but the timestamp was right after mine, only a few hours later. Dan clicked it open without thinking, and what popped up on the screen wasn't my bedroom. It was my mom's. Her side of the bed. I gasped so hard I scared him. Dan froze the video immediately. We didn't need to play it to know what it was. The angle, the height, it was filmed from inside the closet, just peeking through the crack between two hanging coats. You could see the bed, the lamp, the edge of the nightstand where my mom kept her glass of water. And I knew. I knew. This wasn't about me. This was something else, something sicker. He was watching my mom, too. Dan turned to me, waiting for an explanation, but I couldn't speak. I was shaking so hard my teeth were chattering. The realization that I wasn't just the target, that Carl had been filming her, my mother, the woman who trusted him with her life, was so much worse. Because she loved him. She still does. She thought he was the one who gave her stability after years of pain. He built his whole image around being the safe guy. The one who fixed things. The one who never raised his voice. The one who sat quietly at the dinner table and always brought flowers on Sundays. But underneath all that, he was a predator. A calculating one. And now I was holding the evidence in my hand. I had to make a choice. Take this to the police immediately? Or tell my mom first? The thought of showing her what I'd found made me want to scream. But going to the police behind her back felt like a betrayal too. She deserved to know. But how do you tell someone they've been living with a man who filmed them while they slept? How do you prove something like that, without shattering every piece of their world? I didn't have an answer. So I made a plan. The entire drive home from Dan's place, I kept rehearsing how I'd tell her. My mom. The strongest woman I know. I tried to picture her reaction, maybe disbelief, maybe anger. But no matter how I imagined it, nothing felt right. Because nothing is right when the person you sleep beside every night turns out to be hiding cameras in the walls. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the floor by my bed, staring at the spot where the camera had been hidden behind that crooked frame. I thought about all the times I'd been vulnerable in this room, crying after finals, pacing in my underwear while talking on the phone, just being a normal person in her own space. And all the while, Carl was watching. Maybe recording. Maybe worse. In the morning, I didn't bother putting on makeup. My hands were shaking too badly to hold anything steady. I went downstairs and found my mom at the kitchen table, drinking coffee like it was any other Saturday. The sun was pouring in through the window. The house looked peaceful. Normal. That contrast made me sick. I sat down across from her. My voice was steady, but my heart was breaking as I said her name. And then I told her. Everything. The cameras. The memory card. The footage. Carl's late-night checks. The moment he came into my room, smiled at the camera, adjusted it like it was a piece of art on display. At first, she didn't react. She blinked slowly, like maybe I'd just told her a weird dream I had. But when I told her about the second video, the one from her room, she stopped breathing for a moment. I saw it. That pause. That awful realization dawning in her eyes. She asked if I was sure. I told her I had the proof. I offered to show her. She said no. Her hands were clenched around her coffee mug so tightly I thought it might crack in half. She didn't cry. Not at first. My mom doesn't break easily. But then she whispered something I'll never forget. I let him tuck me in last night. That was the moment her walls crumbled. She stood up so fast the chair toppled behind her. She didn't scream. She didn't throw anything. She just walked away. Upstairs. Into her bedroom. She stayed in there for almost an hour. When she came out, she was holding a small duffel bag. She handed it to me. Pack. We're not staying here. We left that morning. She didn't call Carl. Didn't warn him. Didn't even leave a note. Just locked the front door behind us and told me to get in the car. We drove straight to the police station. And the moment we handed over the USB drive, everything changed. When we walked into the police station, my mom didn't hesitate. She walked straight up to the front desk and asked to speak to a detective. Her voice was calm, but there was something underneath it, something cold and controlled, like a steel wire stretched to the point of snapping. They brought us into a small interview room. No windows, just 4 walls, a table, and 2 chairs. A female officer joined us after a few minutes. My mom slid the USB drive across the table without saying a word. I did all the talking. I told the officer about the hidden cameras, the footage, how I'd found the one in my bedroom, and later the one aimed at my mom's side of the bed. I explained how Carl had accessed my room at night, how he acted paranoid when the camera went missing, and how I'd overheard him on the phone saying it was too soon. At first, the officer just listened, scribbled a few notes. But the second she plugged in the USB and opened the files, her face changed. She stopped taking notes. Her jaw clenched. Then she asked the first hard question, "Are there any minors in the home?" "No. Just me and my mom." She nodded, but I saw something in her eyes. Something sharper now. Focused. Like this had suddenly become much more serious than even she expected. She left the room. When she came back, it was with a second officer and a laptop. They asked for our written statements. Then they asked if we'd be willing to give a formal recorded statement for the investigation. We agreed. By the time we left the station, an official search warrant had already been requested. My mom and I stayed at a hotel that night. She didn't say much. Neither of us did. I could tell she was trying to stay strong for me, but I also knew her world had just cracked open. She kept staring at her phone, waiting for Carl to call, to text, to explain himself. But he didn't. Instead, the next morning, we woke up to a different kind of call. The police had raided our house. They found 12 cameras. Some hidden in objects. Some freestanding. Some tucked behind vents and fixtures I never even thought to check. They found 2 hard drives full of footage. And then they found something else, something we hadn't seen coming. A small locked safe in the back of the garage. Inside, they found a second set of memory cards. Not just from our house, but from other places. Other bedrooms. Other bathrooms. Some dated as far back as 2018. This wasn't just about our house anymore. Carl was being investigated for far more than voyeurism. And for the first time since this nightmare began, I saw fear in their eyes, not mine. We spent that day sitting in a small conference room inside the precinct, flanked by 2 detectives and a woman from victim services. They offered us water, coffee, a moment to breathe, but nothing made it easier. Because every few minutes, they came back with something new. Another location. Another camera. Another piece of footage. Carl hadn't just violated us. He'd been doing this for years. It turned out he had worked as a freelance home tech installer before he met my mom, mostly under-the-table jobs, setting up Wi-Fi networks, smart devices, and, yes, security systems. He had access to homes. He knew where people felt safest. And in at least 4 of those homes, he'd hidden cameras. Bedrooms. Bathrooms. Guest rooms. One of the women was a single mom with a teenage daughter. One was an elderly couple he'd helped upgrade their smart home system. Another was a coworker who let him house sit while she was on vacation. The detectives said they were still uncovering files. The 2 hard drives had been encrypted, and the memory cards from the safe were being reviewed by a forensic tech team. They warned us it could take weeks to go through everything. But what they had seen was already enough. They arrested Carl that afternoon. He didn't resist. He didn't even look surprised. When they put him in handcuffs and led him out of the house, a neighbor tried to ask what was going on. Carl just smiled like nothing was wrong. Like he wasn't a monster whose secret life had finally caved in on itself. My mom didn't go home to see it. She didn't want to. But I watched the footage later, because of course someone filmed it. A neighbor, probably. The video made its way to a local Facebook group before the end of the day. The comments were a mess of disbelief and gossip. He always seemed so polite. He helped fix our router last fall. My God, was he watching us too? That last one stuck with me. Because I wondered the same thing. How many people had he watched? How many had no idea? And how close had I come to never knowing? If I hadn't knocked that stupid frame off the wall, if I hadn't been dusting, if I hadn't looked, I'd still be sleeping in that room, completely exposed. And Carl would still be smiling across the breakfast table, telling my mom he loved her. The scariest part? We still don't know if all the victims have been found. And some of them might never know. It's been 2 months since Carl's arrest. Some days, it still doesn't feel real. I wake up and expect to hear him making coffee downstairs, flipping through the paper like nothing in the world could touch him. But instead, the house is quiet, still. Like it's finally exhaled. We haven't moved back in. My mom put the house up for sale a few weeks ago. She said she couldn't sleep there, couldn't stand the walls that watched us both for who knows how long. I don't blame her. I haven't stepped foot inside since the raid. The idea of sleeping in that room again? It turns my stomach. Carl's trial is coming. The evidence is overwhelming: video files, timestamps, tech logs, and testimonies from at least 6 other victims so far. They're charging him with multiple counts of unlawful surveillance, invasion of privacy, and, possibly, more serious charges if investigators find anything involving minors. I hope they bury him in it. Not out of spite, but out of principle. Some people should never see daylight again. As for my mom, she's surviving. I think she still blames herself a little, even though she won't say it out loud. She keeps going over the early signs she missed, the hours he'd spend in the garage, the way he kept his phone close all the time, the locked cabinet she never questioned. But I keep telling her what I had to tell myself. He was careful. He was patient. He played the long game. Monsters don't always growl when they enter the room. Sometimes, they wear wedding bands and bring flowers on Sundays. We've started therapy together, me and my mom. We talk about everything now. Even the hard stuff. Especially the hard stuff. It's the one good thing that came out of this. That, and the strength I didn't know I had. Because here's the truth, I could have ignored the blinking light. I could have talked myself out of it, convinced myself I was imagining things. But I didn't. I listened to that quiet voice inside, the one that says something's not right even when everything looks fine. And that voice saved us. I think about that a lot now. Trusting your gut. Trusting yourself. Because that's how you survive people like Carl. You trust yourself more than the lies they wrap in kindness. So now, I'm trying to build a life again. One that doesn't involve checking corners and peeking behind picture frames. I'm moving out next month. Starting fresh in a city where nobody knows me as the girl from that camera story. Just me. On my own terms. Before we left the house for the last time, my mom did something I'll never forget. She walked into Carl's office, pulled open the drawer where he kept his spare keys and old receipts, and placed one thing on the desk. That frame. The one from my bedroom. The one that started it all. She didn't say a word. She just turned and walked out. And when the door closed behind us, it felt like closing the last chapter of a book we never wanted to read. But we survived it. And that's something no one can take away.